Hello and welcome to MuscleCards Convo. Today I have the pleasure of sitting with three amazing gentlemen, Mr. Stephen Tasciotti, Mr. Dale Barnes, and Chris Hicks. On this show, we're going to be talking everything cars, from collectors, builders. If you race them, you're on here. Hey, if you tear them down, you're on this show. Now, we're going to be talking about cars over playing different card games for your card lovers. Poker, spades, blackjacks, whatever, with muscle cards. Now, muscle cards are custom playing cards laced with desirable cards on each face of the card. Okay, Chris, tell everybody what you do.
I'm the founder of Collectible Motor Car of Atlanta here in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been open for about a year and a half. We deal with collectible cars, anything from a 1955 Beetle all the way up to a 2019 Z01. We do a little bit of it all. But that's basically what I do. I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I eat, sleep, breathe cars. So that's kind of how I ended up meeting you. Actually, I was at a car show promoting the business, and we ran into each other, and we hit it off right off the bat. And you were telling me about what you wanted to do with the card game and everything, and I was open to help you out any way I can. So that's how we ended up here in the showroom. But other than that, man, I'm blessed. I don't have any complaints.
Yeah.
Well, I met Calvin 2 years ago at Caffeine and Octane. For the better part of my career, I was the division manager of marketing for Yamaha Outboard Motors. That was until this March when I retired. And now I get up every day with my wife trying to figure out exactly what our plan for the day is going to be. And I have to tell you, it involves a lot of detail on my car.
Yes. Stephen.
Hey, I'm Steve. We work here at Collectible Motor Cars. Hunt cars on a daily basis. I spent about 20 years in manufacturing, automotive manufacturing, and I always flipped cars on the side, and now I kind of do it as a full-time thing, and it's definitely a more passionate daily get up and go. So
Now, before I open up the table, thank each and every last one of you guys for doing this. That being said, what is the worst car you have ever driven?
Oh my gosh. Do we
Oh,
really
no.
want to go there?
You got to do it.
That's a hard one because I've drove a lot of cars. Being in this business, I've drove anything from a Model T to a Pinto. Man, I'm going to have to think about that one. The Model Ts are cool cars, but they are a pain in the butt to drive. Mm-hmm. It's like driving a tractor pretty much. Yeah. And half the time they don't want to run right. The carburetors are old on them. And I'd probably have to say an old Model T would probably be the worst car I've ever driven.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife and I both, when we were going through school, had Volkswagen Bugs. And to the positive, I've learned that you can keep those things running with a roll of wire and a bunch of duct tape, but not the most enjoyable cars, at least for me.
I would say if I had to talk about owning one, I had a Ford Contour. I think it was a 95. That was an absolute bucket of crap. I would say. It was a terrible car. It's probably the ugliest and most awful car that I've owned.
I know when I got my Chevelle, beautiful on the outside, everything, front to back, in and out.
It is.
The moment I got in that car, I said, man, this car's all over the place. I can feel everything, body roll, every bump, every rock that the tire goes over. And I'm like, okay, from now to how they was driving it then, I'm like, this can't be what they was experiencing back then. Like, what were you driving? I'm thinking, what were they driving on? But the car was all over the place. So, and my wife telling me even more now, you should drive your car. You should drive your car. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna drive the car, babe. I'm gonna get in there. I'm gonna enjoy it. But in my mind, I'm like, man, this car's all over the place though. So, but it's okay. It's coming around. I'm actually getting used to it. So it's definitely a lot better.
Well, that's one good thing with the market now with the resto mods. You got Rod Tech, you've got Detroit Speed, you've got several companies like that that are making great components that can definitely help improve the ride. It's expensive, but the enjoyment that you get out of driving the car versus how it is stock. You get rid of that old gearbox, put a rack and pinion in it, put coilovers all the way around. I mean, the things ride like they're on a cloud after that. But you definitely got the right car. Being in this business, I've had several Chevelles, and the 70 Chevelle is the king of the road,
Yes.
man. That's what everybody wants. As far as the Chevy guys, you know, the Fords, you know, still the Mustang fastbacks are still pretty hot, the Mach 1s. But if you're a Chevy guy, everybody wants the 70. So you got the right year, man. It's a beautiful car. But man, we can get that thing riding good, man.
Oh,
it takes a little bit of money.
Yeah, the
I
money
think that's what
part.
makes the difference between transportation and a car that you have a love affair with.
Yes.
And I think half of the enjoyment of ownership is all the things that you do from a day-to-day basis to take care of them, prep them, solve issues like you're talking about.
Yes.
That's where a lot of the enjoyment comes from.
Modernize it more.
Otherwise, it's transportation.
Right.
Another good point with those 70s cars is those bench seats or any of the seating in there. I
there's
mean,
a lot
you
of
know, you
space
go
back
around
there.
a corner, you just slide off the seat. You're in the passenger side before you know it.
Yeah, that's the whole experience, I think, with the classic cars. You know, you get used to riding in these modern cars. And you go and hop in one of these classic cars, and they're a little noisy. They smell a little bit more than like a new car does. That's the whole experience that people fall in love with, you know, especially, you know, older generation or people even like my age. You know, like when I was in high school, I dreamed about a Trans Am. If you had a WS6 at my high school, you were the man. So, you know, I think, you know, as people, when they get older, they kind of reminisce on the car they had in high school or college. And like I said, these cars now are boring. They're super quiet. They basically drive themselves. And it's cool to get in a car that's a little noisy and it shakes when you pull up to the red light. It's got a big old cam in it, you know. I love it, man. And that's one thing that, like, I think electric cars are cool. And I definitely think they have a place in the future of cars.
I agree.
But at the end of the day, man, I love a hot rod.
It's nothing like it.
It's nothing like it.
Nothing like it. And I've experienced the heat coming up from under the car, through the car, and it's like summer year round in that car. It's amazing. I love every experience of it, from past time and to where it's going now. So I enjoy it. Chris, let's deal us a hand.
Let's do it.
Question. Where did you get your desire from cars from?
You can go ahead and start off, Steve, while I'm doing this.
I think it started when I was a kid. I mean, just the 80s car shows, you know, I mean, like Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard, whatever it was, you know, I mean, and it just grew from there. And then when I was 15, we moved to South Carolina in the South, and there was a drag strip around the corner. And I mean, me and my buddy were just trying to figure out how to make our cars faster.
Yes.
You know, broke a lot of transmissions that parents weren't happy about, but had some fun doing it. Definitely got in some trouble too.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know, for me, like so many of us, I think the DNA was embedded in my teen years, in my early 20s, and back in those high school days and what have you. I learned a lot from my father and my brother, watching them with their cars and watching how my dad took care of cars. I watched all of the muscle cars that my brother had, and had a lot of desire that grew up from that. And for me, ultimately, it was sort of a cross-section of enjoying dirt bikes and muscle cars, and that's what brought me together for an El Camino.
Nice.
Yeah, I would have to say mine stemmed from a young boy. My uncle and my father always had cars. My father buys and flips cars. My father will buy one that needs some work done to it, and so I've always been out in the garage watching him work on stuff. My uncle's built several very high-end show cars. I mean, he can cut the quarters out of cars, put new roofs on them. I mean, so I can remember growing up, I can remember being 8 years old, going to my uncle's house and going into his garage. He'd have his cars, friends' cars, they'd all be in there working on their cars. And one thing that I really remember as a kid, like, he was always that crazy uncle that would show up to Thanksgiving and do a burnout in the street. You know, so like I can remember being a kid seeing that, you know, and your uncle, you know, your uncle or your dad's always like your hero, you know. So I can just remember him being crazy. I remember one time, this is kind of funny, we were at a funeral for one of my uncles that had passed away. And at the end, after it was all said and done, my uncle, he was a painter, the one that passed away. So he was a big car guy. Well, at the end, we're all sitting out there, you know, after the funeral and everything. And all of a sudden, we just hear, we see him come flying down in his third-gen Camaro, and he rips the e-brake and does a 360, and then just starts cutting donuts in the parking lot.
You need.
Yeah, he was wild, man. And like I said, it would be Thanksgiving, man. He'd pull up and just do a brake stand in the parking lot and just smoke it up. And he was just crazy like that. And I think, you know, just seeing that as a kid, you know, and my dad would always, you know, sometimes, you know, it'd be wet and he'd go to pull out and he'd bust it sideways a little bit, you know, and I'd be in the car, you know, and I'd just eat that up, man. And, you know, I've always loved cars. I wanted to race cars, but my parents just didn't have the money. You know, to race, you have to have some money.
It's big money.
It's big money.
I did the next best thing. I street raced. I did a lot of that. I've been in trouble for evading arrest in a car. I ran from cops. I've been caught once, and I've ran probably 10 times and never got caught. But like he said, I think it was in my DNA. I just think I've always had this drawn to cars. I've always been passionate, and I've gone away from it before. I bodybuilt for a little bit. You probably can't tell now, but I didn't do anything car related when I bodybuilt.
Nice.
But I always come back to cars. It's one of those things where it's always just drawn me, and that's how I ended up here.
My first experience with cars, of course, you had the Matchbox, you had the Hot Wheels, you had the small scale cars, and we had the remote control cars. The only thing, those were the only experience we had prior to seeing my stepdad pull up in a Chevelle. And at the time we playing with the remote control cars, and we just hear and we stopped and said, "What's that?" So we immediately run to the front door, and he's in the street, and we like, oh my God, it's a surprise to everybody. We've never seen anything like it, anything close. So our first thoughts were, oh, our stepdad got a racing car. Oh my God, he got a racing car. So we run down the steps, and he's in the middle of the street, and all of a sudden he positioned his hand on the steering wheel. He goes back like this, and you can see him pulling. He can just yank it. He gets it in the driveway. And we going crazy about the car. And he sits back, he's proud, he's a proud dad. And so we get in the car, and the Chevelles are huge cars. We get in the car, kids, when the seats, and we kids, we in the steering wheel like, dude, what's stepdad got a racing car? What's stepdad got a racing car? Oh my God, this is crazy. And it's amazing that, we all share those memories where it's vivid. Your first experience, you remember everything about it, and I can't let it go. So, as you can see now, I have a '70 Chevelle.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's my
I think
first
we all
experience.
have that one car that was our first memory that just put that octane running through our veins.
Yes.
And we couldn't get rid of it. Yeah. So. But with that being said, y'all want to play a hand of some blackjack?
Let's get a hand going. Chris,
All right.
deal us up.
And just to give the people at home, we're not big card guys. We're car guys, not card guys.
Guys, correct.
So if we're not doing it to 100% the right way, we're just here to have fun, and that's basically what we're doing.
Yes.
So we're going to play some blackjack. So, and I'll be the dealer.
Now we'll ask, do you think you will still have the love that you have for cars had it not been your parents introducing you to that? Do you think you would have found your way to MuscleCards had it not been for your parents?
I'll go first. I don't think so. I think that we're kind of a product of our environment. I think definitely growing up around it, it exposed me to it at an early age. But at the same time, I don't know. I'd say yes, but then I know people that have no family members that are into cars, but I guess they got into high school and they had a friend that introduced them to it. So I think it just all depends on who you're around. That old saying where they say, you're only as good as your friends are. So, if your friends are car guys, then you're more than likely going to eventually be a car guy. But I would definitely say my family definitely influenced me to be a car person. Like I said, I can remember my first truck I got, me and Dad were out there, I got it a whole year early so I could modify it.
Let's go.
So I was 15 when I got the truck. I still had my learner's permit. Dad bought me the truck, and I was actually already modifying it.
At 15?
At 15, yeah.
Sweet.
I was lucky. My grandmother, when she passed away, she had a trust that she left me about $7,000 when she passed away, and I was able to use that money. Because when I started driving was when we had the recession. So I was very fortunate because at the time my parents were on hard times. So I was very fortunate that I had that a little bit of money to be able to buy a car.
Nice.
But yeah, that's how I got mine. But ever since then, I've bought all my own cars. I've never had one bought. The first one was that one.
The freebie.
Yeah,
The
the
one
freebie.
freebie,
The freebie.
For me, absolute affirmative, Calvin. If it weren't, for my father's influence and my brother's influence, who knows where my interests would have gone. I remember I was 11 years old, and my dad and mom took me on a trip to Europe, which for an 11-year-old is a pretty special occasion.
Yeah.
But what really made it special and memorable for my life was I didn't realize at the time. We went to Stuttgart, Germany, and my dad took possession of a Porsche from the Porsche factory and spent 3 weeks in Europe on the Autobahn in a 911. And the memory that I'll never forget was we were 3 or 4 days into it and the car had been broken in at that point. Wow. And my mom was asleep in the front seat and I was riding in the back. And with luggage, by the way, which is, I don't know how we did it, but I remember my mother waking up and looking around and just enjoying the sights as the sides of the road were flying by. Mm-hmm. And then she quietly looked over the speedometer and saw we were doing 130. And the flip out was unforgettable. And I think in that moment, I began my love affair with automobiles.
Wow.
That's a good one to do.
That's a good one. 130 on the Autobahn in a Porsche 911.
Yeah.
That experience is crazy.
It was pretty remarkable.
Wow.
And as a kid, I was enjoying it all.
Yeah, we got to remember this ain't the Porsche of today. This was probably what year Porsche was it?
This was a 1969.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're talking. If any of you at home have drove an older Porsche like that, I mean, we're not talking about the Porsche. So I'm surprised she didn't notice it earlier.
The vibration.
Oh, they're just not the cars they are today. I mean,
Well, and I think what relaxed her into it is we were flying along. You see the cars next to you
they're going all the same speed.
that are pretty much going the same speed as we were at the time. So it was no different than being on the 405 in Southern California at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
But when she realized, the speed we were going, that's what flipped her out. I'll tell you what was also remarkable is you learn real quick when you're on the Autobahns in Europe and you see flashing lights coming up on
Get out of the
you,
way.
you better get out of the way, and you better get out of the way pretty quick.
Now, did you know what you were in at that time when your dad was driving?
Not so much, but that's when it all began to come out. Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
I didn't have an appreciation for how remarkable that opportunity was until I was a little older. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
What about you, Steve?
For me, I'm the odd guy out. I mean, my dad was not into cars at all, and kind of my hero of my life was my grandfather. He was not really a car guy. I mean, he has this car that's sitting in the back over there, and not really a car guy neither. I think he had 2 cars the entire time that he was alive. So for me, it just kind of festered up. My dad's friend would come over, and he had the first C3 Corvette that I ever saw, black with pop-up headlights in the 80s. And, that was just the coolest thing ever. So that really kind of piqued my interest, and then of course with the TV shows that were going on. So it just kind of grew on its own, and I think that I think I would have found it no matter what.
Now, I know you mentioned the drag strip. Were you on it a lot at that time?
Yeah, when I wasn't street racing, we were doing a lot of that stuff. Yeah, because that was a good place to test it out and really kind of see, are you making any difference? And kind of way before, this is kind of the first OBD1, when computers were just kind of taking over and you could start to kind of tweak around with stuff. And we were doing 4-cylinder turbo cars and we're competing with V8s, and that was a big thing back then.
How long did you stay with that? I know you was younger.
I'd say that was probably when I was 14 to 18, and then I started to get into more V8 cars, Mustangs, stuff like that.
So it seems like that age around 13, 14, 15, that's when you really get that urge, like you can understand and you can realize what it is. As opposed to being younger, you just know I'm in something crazy fast that looks amazing. You get older, you be like, okay, I know what that is.
Well, I think that age around 14, you're getting to that age where you're real close to getting your driver's license.
Yes.
You're hitting middle school. The older guys at school that have the cool cars. And to me, I think, a car is like, cars have been around for a while now. And I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like in our DNA, kind of like how the horse, like you ever been around a horse and you just have that weird feeling around a horse? I think that's just in us because we use them for so long for transportation. I think it's just in our DNA to feel that attachment to horses and dogs and stuff. I think it's the same with cars. I think, a car to me was not just transportation. It was freedom. It was fun. It was, all
A chance to get some chicks.
Yeah, I thought that was going to help me, but it didn't help me at all. I was like, have a cool car, I'll get all the girls. No, it didn't help
It
at all.
doesn't work like that. You soon find out.
Yeah.
But you think it is,
Yeah.
especially at that.
But the
age.
high school guys really, you see that cool kid at high school, he got it and everybody's just surrounded by his car when he comes and when he goes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. So
Yeah, and then you always have the guys in high school that were, driving Corvettes, and one chick had like a Porsche there. You're just like, I remember thinking when I was getting my driver's license, Dad, what's up? Am I going to get a car? He's like, oh, you want a car? He's like, yeah, you need to get a job. And then he told me this, which I think taught me in life. He goes, I tell you what, he goes, I'll match whatever you save up. He goes, I'll match it and we'll go buy a car.
nice.
The first paycheck at McDonald's, $250,
Yep.
about a $500 car.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
See,
my
now
God,
if
we
I
was
was
just
smart,
talking about that.
I would have waited out. But
It's good, it's good that your father did. I think it teaches, I
Yeah.
think a lot of kids that I see, especially when I was growing up, a lot of my friends, not a lot of them, but a lot of them got things free. And, like I said, my parents weren't like that. I kind of had to work for a little bit of everything that I had. And I definitely think it teaches you to set goals and work towards things. You were talking about breaking transmissions. I remember I had I couldn't afford I always been a V8 guy, but I couldn't afford the insurance on a V8 at 18 years old. So I had a Civic hatchback with a GSR start.
I remember
So
those.
I'm a little bit of a JDM guy
Yes, I
too.
remember those.
And I remember I used to tear the transmission up in that because those motors rev out to 8,500 RPM, and I was banging the gears as hard as I could. I broke shift forks. I broke the differential in a transmission. I'd break axles. And I remember I broke like 2 transmissions within like a 4-month period. And there was literally 2 months where I had to bum rides to work because my parents would not pay for it. I remember I was doing valet at the time, and I opened up my sock drawer and I'd have a wad of cash. And I had to save up like $1,200, and back then,
For a transmission.
$1,200 when you're like,
Wow.
20 years old, and I have no car, and I'm like literally picking up extra shifts trying to do. And I did all my work own work back then. So I had the car lifted up in the garage. Luckily, I was very lucky that when my dad bought the house, he had a bass boat and was real big into bass fishing. So he wanted a detached garage so he could keep the boat in there. So we were very lucky. We had a big detached garage, and my dad's now converted that into like a shop. And he'll buy these cars and fix them up and stuff. But I always had a nice garage with tools and stuff, so I was very fortunate with that. And I had a good friend, Tim, that was a certified Honda mechanic, and I became good. I was friends with his brother, but because I was into the Honda stuff and I was always doing things, like I would pay him to do little things, but I would be like, look, I'm going to pay you, but I want to watch. I want you to show me. And that's what kind of got me into like fixing my own stuff. And like, you build confidence that way. And really, to be a good mechanic, you really just need to have confidence and good tools. If you have the right tools and confidence, you can pretty much do it. There's a couple things you need to do where you need a partner to hold something up while you're doing something, but just got to have the confidence and have a good set of tools, and you can do it, man. It's not hard.
Let's stay on this subject. What is, because you talked about just going through gears, what is the fastest car you guys have driven?
Well, the fastest car I've ever driven was a Copo Camaro, 2020. It was I drove a couple of Copo Camaros. This one was a black one with the I'm trying to remember. I think it was a 427 stroker motor that was in it. It was an LS motor. It was 427, and it was pretty fast. I drove another one that was a 5.7 LS1 with LSX heads, LSX block. It had I think it was a 3-liter supercharger on it, and I got to drive that and actually like get on it. Like, it was pretty fast. But the fastest street car that I probably ever driven was a C5 Corvette Z06. It was built by Vengeance Racing in Cummings, Georgia. You've probably heard of them.
Yes.
It was around 700 horsepower, and Steve can vouch for this. It was a scary car.
Yeah,
it was one of those cars
trickle
where
of peak.
yeah, it was. I took him for
Just a little bit.
We were working at this place, and we were about to sell this car, and I was like, Steve, you got to ride in this car. And I took it out on the street, and he goes, remember, I have kids. And I was like, oh, you're good. Dude, we're rolling 60 miles an hour, blowing white smoke out the back because the tires were just spinning. I mean, it was
scary.
It was crazy fast. Like, it was one of those cars where, like, I mean, you make one bad move of the steering wheel and you're done. But yeah, that car was probably the fastest car. And I've drove ZR1 Corvettes. I've drove just Z06s. I've drove the Copo Camaro, believe it or not, like, it didn't feel that fast because it's built for that. So even on
drag
a
racer?
I wasn't even on a prep surface, and it still hooked and went, but it was fast. Like,
So it's not a streetable car. Was it more of a drag car?
Yeah, Copo Camaro is a car that Chevrolet designed. They teamed up with Copo, and it's a straight drag car. It doesn't even come with a title. You can't even
drive it on the road.
You can't even get it registered for the road. It's a straight track purpose car. It's a lot like the Mustang version, which the
Was it
The Cobra Jets.
Cobra Jets?
Cobra Jets are the same way. They don't come with a title. They're a straight race car. So this was a straight race car that's built by Copo. There's several videos on YouTube that you can check out.
I believe they just released another one too.
Yeah.
So
For me, it's two different experiences. I go back again to the 911 on the Autobahn was one experience, and completely differently when I was young, and I kind of switched over to my interest in muscle cars. I remember a good friend of mine, we had spent a summer building up a 63 Chevy 2 Nova, which is a very, very small, light car.
yes,
Put a 327 in it, and that Nova had some get up and go, and it was a very squirrely car,
Yeah.
particularly with the V8 in it, and we got ourselves in trouble a couple different times in that car. We did learn one thing though. We learned to behave ourselves in how we drove around the neighborhood, particularly on the streets close to our house. We did most of our fun at least a few miles away from our house, so we thought that our parents didn't know much about it, but ironically, you'd be surprised what your parents know.
You're
nice.
better than me. I didn't hide it. I had a friend that lived like 2 streets over. He goes, it never failed. I'd be out in the shop. James Roulette. Yeah, he's kind of a famous guy. He's been on a couple of TV shows for drag racing, but he had a house 2 streets over from me, and I lived on a really curvy road. So I'd come home from 3 o'clock in the morning working at the bars or something, and I'd be just hauling. And he goes, it would never fail. I'd be out in the shop working. And he goes, about 3 o'clock, I would hear you coming. He goes, there's Chris. He would text me.
Yeah.
He goes, you're crazy, man. You know, just giving that car crap.
Chris said, "I'm getting all the experiences I can. Whoever got a car,
I
I'm
was
driving."
wild, man. When it came to driving cars and stuff, I was wild. I'm lucky to be here. I was definitely hell on wheels for
Yes.
sure.
I think we all had our moments
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad suffered a lot. Paycheck book, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I experienced driving with a young boy. I think his dad had passed. He was young. He was probably around 14, 15. His dad had a white Mustang, I think it was a Boss 302, and he was trying to sell it. Man, at the time, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was a nice looking car. He comes down the street. We're sitting on the porch of my grandma's house. He comes down the street. "Hey, anybody want to take a ride in my dad's car?" I'm like, no supervision outside. And I'm like, okay, let's go. He said, "Come on, it's in the driveway." Sweet. Man, this man was 14, 15 years old and could drive the mess out of this car. When he hit that first gear, I'm in the seat like, oh my God, what did I just do? What did I just do? And the drive wasn't that long, and you can just see the boy just boom, boom, boom. And once he came down to 4, I said, "Look, let me out." I said, "Let me out." My chest is just it was just beating. I said, "Man, let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out." He said, "Yeah, man, this is my dad's car, and we're trying to sell it." I said, "Man, just let me out the car." I didn't want to hear nothing else. Just let me out
You know,
the
and
car.
I miss that because I think over time when you drive fast cars, you lose that. I think it's just because you've never been anything
That's exactly
that
it.
fast. Because I've lost that over time. Now, like I drive 500-600 horsepower cars, and I'm like, this is slow. But like you said, I can remember when I was younger and I hadn't been in a bunch of cars. I remember the first boosted car that I ever rode in. I was young, high school. Guy's parents won the lottery and bought him a. It was either a Roush or a Shelby, like
Let's
07,
go,
08
parents.
Mustang. Yeah, I mean, he was lucky. I mean, his parents won like $2 million for the lottery or whatever, and he got this car. And he was down hanging out where we like hung around, like by the basketball courts in a subdivision. He was going to take me home, and I got in it, and we got down off the back roads where I live, man. And he got on it. It was just like that. Like when he got on it, it was like I was like, oh my God, I want one of these. I want one. You know, I was like, it was crazy. And I remember the first time I ever rode in a Corvette. It was just a base model Corvette.
Old school?
No, it was I believe it was a C6. So it had an LS3 in it, and I remember it was midnight blue. That's when I fell in love with Corvettes. I always loved Corvettes, but after I rode in this, my buddy, he was 17. His dad owned a trucking company, had some money, and he let his son take it out every now and then. He took me for a ride. He knew I loved Corvettes, so he begged his dad to take me for a ride. And so we get out, and I remember he stops at a red light, and he looks at me and he goes, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. About that time, he punched it, dude. And I just remember, like you said, man, my head threw in the seat. And I remember everything just felt like it was moving.
Yes.
It was like my brain couldn't comprehend. And I remember thinking the same thing, to be a young guy, like, he's driving the shit out of
This car, like,
And, you know, because I'd never driven anything fast like that. You know, I'd had a couple Hondas and
Yes.
a couple, you know, things like that. But, you know, I miss that feeling of, I've gotten spoiled because I've been around so many fast cars now. Like, if it don't have 700, 800 wheel horsepower,
Feels normal.
It feels normal. I wouldn't say it feels normal, but I'm just bored with it.
yeah,
But you know, and I think that's one of the differences between today's cars and vintage cars. And this is not a knock either way.
Yeah.
It's whatever you enjoy. But I think there's so much electronics and computerization and traction control
Yep.
to optimize your power curve and your control of the road, which is certainly has its distinct advantages. But you've lost the adrenaline, you've lost the rush of
Well, you're not driving
of unbridled power.
You're not driving the car anymore. The
right.
car's driving itself, you know.
That's right.
And that's with a car with no traction control, you have to drive the car. That's
right.
You have to, you know, when I got into doing some autocross, and I thought I could drive, and I started doing some autocross, and I learned very quickly that I did not know how to drive. I thought I did, man. You don't realize, like, when you're riding on a tight course like that, how, like, getting back onto the throttle easy and not laying into it, because when you spin, you're not making good time. And I learned that because I'd come out of turns sideways, dude. The guys that are working the course would be running, you know, because I'm drifting the course, but my time sucked. And I knew this guy there, and he took me for a ride. And he's like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "When you're coming out of these turns, you're matting the gas to the floor." He goes, "You got to ease into it. You got to control it." Because when you're spinning the tires and you're sideways, you're losing time.
I spent I spent many years racing dirt bikes when I was a kid, and have the scars to show for it. But that's one of the things you learn with a bike like that, is you learn to control your power, and it really helps apply driving a higher power car when you have control of the power, and as opposed to the computer doing it for you.
Yeah.
What's your fastest car? I know you've
Well,
tell me a little bit about your background as far as living in Finland, and because you've got a pretty
I've
unique
lived
background.
everywhere. I've driven in Germany a few times with rental cars, which is, I think, more fun. But I do have one good story about driving. Maybe not the fastest car, but the fastest I've ever driven for the longest amount of time. And it was 14 years ago when my son was being born. My wife is in the hospital, only child out of 4 that's going to be induced. And it's supposed to happen in the morning, and I'm working night shift. So I'm supposed to go to work. The doctor said go to work, you know, and then in the morning come here and everything will be fine. Okay. I go to work, and my wife calls me. She said, "I think this baby's going to come." And I go, "Well, why don't you call me back when the doctor, you know, calls you?" And so she says, "I've had 3 other kids I know." I'm like, "Okay, all right." So I wait about another 10, 15 minutes. I'm actually driving my mom's Lexus LS or SC430, the little V8 hardtop convertible. So I get in the car, and I start heading there, and I'm going maybe 75 on the highway, and it's about 45 minutes away. This is in Georgia on Highway 20. So I'm going down, and then she calls. She says, "You better hurry up and get here. I'm serious. This thing's coming. If you want to see the kid born, you better hurry up." I said, "Okay, well, all right." So I step it up. I'm going about 120 now. Put the cruise control on, rolling down the highway. Then the nurse calls about 10 minutes later and says, "Hey, if you want to see this kid born, you really better step on it." I was looking down, and I said, "Oh shit, all right, let's see what it'll do."
What are you?
155 down. I mean, and, you know, when you're driving 155 miles an hour, most of the time, you go up to 155, and then you do it for maybe 30, 40 seconds and then back off.
Yep.
But we're talking, you know, 15, 20 minutes at 155 miles
Straight
an
shot.
hour. Yeah, nighttime. Luckily, it's at nighttime, no cars. But I mean, I thought for sure I was going to get pulled over. And then I pull into the parking lot, and I don't even park the car. I just get out, leave the door open. I run up the stairs. And
Got to capture the moment.
She pushed like 2 times, and then I'm holding the baby, still shaking.
Your adrenaline's so high.
Gosh,
Jesus, that's
I
crazy.
just got through doing 150.
I'm not full of adrenaline.
yeah, completely 2 different, you know, births for sure. That one, and I think this kid, he's my youngest son. I think he'll probably be the fast, reckless one. We'll see.
Chris, I think I'm gonna stick with what I got, man.
Okay, you gonna say? What do you?
I think I need hit.
Want to hit again?
Yeah, I think so. One more time.
Ooh.
I'll take a hit.
So what the dealer's got here? Oh, you won.
Yes,
I just
sirree.
wanted the GTO anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
These are
these
nice
are really
cards.
these are really cool cards. So, like, what different cards are on there? Let's talk about this for a minute. This looks like maybe
So that's the
It looks like a Mustang Fastback.
that's the
GTO.
Torino.
Torino.
So you can see it on the
Yeah,
side.
I see it. It's a
It's a
Torino.
Torino, and on this club is the '69 Trans Am. And as you can see, it's themed. There's oil on this one.
Yeah, I see that.
So track.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I
So
got
the
like
paint, the keys.
Yeah, that's really
I
rad.
think he have a couple of
So basically, on the Jack, Queen, King, Ace, you've got the car. You got the cars on there.
and you when you look at them, you can see from value on down. So the stronger, more
So what's
popular
the
cars
King?
are higher.
What's on the
Oh,
King?
cool.
So you got some Camaros in there, you got some Mustangs in there,
That's good. Bro.
Got a
and you
Mercury
got
Cougar Eliminator, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks like a Charger.
so you got the Charger on one of the
RT.
Kings. So as you go down, they get lower and lower.
GTO Queen,
On the Queens.
Got a
You,
Superbird.
you got to
for
have the
King.
Superbird for the
Yeah,
King.
you got to. Those bring big money, man.
And there go the couple.
Look, I want to talk about that. Let's talk about the auctions, man. Since
Oh,
COVID,
oh my God.
you know, as a car guy, you know, a lot of us can't afford to pay $100,000 for a nice car, and it's, you know, it's been good and bad for business for me, but I kind of hate it for the car community because I feel like the people that want to get a car but have 2 kids and they're in daycare and it's not cheap, man, and I don't know if these prices are going to eventually rebound or if they're going to stay out, but you know, you go back to the supply and demand.
Yes.
I've noticed a huge uptick in as far as the people that want cars.
Yes.
I mean, the car community has grown a ton, and you could probably account for this because you've been in it longer than any of us sitting here.
Yes.
And I can definitely tell in the last like 5 years when it comes to like aftermarket companies making
Yes.
parts and
Yes.
you know, variety of different things. It's just the car community has gone crazy. So I think the supply and demand has a little bit to do with it. And I think with COVID, I think a lot of people were looking for things to do outside because, you know, they said don't
Yes.
go inside. So I know camper sales went through the roof. If you
Yep.
look on the road, there's campers everywhere.
Yep.
So I think the
Some in
car,
your neighborhood.
yeah, I think the classic cars took a big boom around that too. 'Cause that's right around
Yes.
the time when I got
And
into
even
the
now,
car game.
even now.
Was right before COVID hit, and I kind of seen it happen. But I kind of hate it for the car community because I feel like a lot of people that want to get into it can't
Or
afford
go back
really
to
get
getting
into
what they had when they was younger.
because the prices have gotten so crazy.
As opposed to what we was talking about, people were paying a couple of $100, $2,300, $3,600
Yeah.
for these cars that are going for $500, $600.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. We're sitting right here next to some 4th Gen Camaros and a 4th Gen Trans Am. You go back I had a Trans Am back in 2020. I paid $11,000 for it. It was 70, had like right at 70, no, it had 65,000 miles on it. That car today would be probably a $20,000 car. I mean, this Camaro that's sitting behind us has 12,000 miles on it, and it's a $30,000 car all day long. It's a SS, so it's got the SLP package, 6-speed manual, 12,000 original miles, 1 owner. I mean, those cars are bringing upper 20s. Some of them low 30s, depending on, you know, the color and the miles. But find one with 12,000 miles, can't do it. It's, you know, same with the Fox bodies. The Fox body Mustangs have gotten.
Yes.
You could get a Fox body 3 years ago, a decent one for 10 grand. Now they're going for almost 20.
Now,
really
this
nice one
this
for
is
10
not
grand.
souped up.
No, this is just
That's-
a nice stock GT
Correct.
manual. You know, just a decent car. And it's like now they've gone up. They've gotten super desirable. You know, I think the cars. What you have to do is you have to find that car that's not quite. If you're trying to get into it as a budget, you got to find that car that's not quite hit it yet.
Yes.
So, for example, I think one of the cars that hasn't quite hit it yet is like that '98 Mustang behind us, that body style, or even like
SN94.
or what's the body style after that? You know the Mustangs a little better than I do. Like the
Is that the-
04, 05.
Yes.
So, you know, you can still get into a car. You just got to pick the right car. But it really seems like the cars that are hitting that 25-year mark are just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Like my truck, the OBS that I have. I mean, I got that truck 2 years ago. I had the LS motor in it, and it blew up after I bought it, and I built it to...
Yeah, tell us about your truck. What did you do to it?
Well, it's a little bit of a long story. I had a C7 Corvette, and I bought that truck to be my daily driver to drive back and forth. I bought it. I seen it come up on Facebook Market. Had an LS motor already in it. I love those trucks. I've had like 3 of them. And the guy only wanted 11 grand for it. And I was like, well, and I think he wanted 15, but I talked him down to 11 on it because it had some issues. The wiring, a lot of things you see with these LS swaps, people don't know how to do the wiring, so it's all chopped up. It's really not that hard to do. But anyways, I bought it and was going to be my daily driver. I was going to fix the harness. At the time, I was shooting YouTube videos with my channel, with a YouTube channel that I was trying to make it big. So I was going to do a video series with it. Well, I had it 2 months, it blew up. So then I had this, you know, I don't, Steve can attest for this.
doesn't do
I don't do
anything.
anything half-assed.
Yes.
You know, I have, it's kind of a sickness. Like if I'm going to do something, I research it to the max and I go all out.
We all
Yeah.
have the disease.
Spares no expense.
So basically, the motor blew up. I could have probably gone a little cheaper. I could have just done the stock, refinished the stock crank, and
Yes.
put the stock rods and everything back in it. But instead, I went Texas Speed and add car. If it was the most expensive part,
Yeah.
I
They
added
want
it to the car. So it turned out to be, it's all forged bottom end, scat, stage 3 crank, H-beam rods from Texas Speed, Wiseco pistons. It's built for boost. I had the engine builder build it for about 15 to 20 pounds of boost. I was told that it would hold 1,000 horsepower. No
The way it
problem.
sits now.
The way it sits right now. And the reason I didn't put the turbo on it right away is I also had a mentor that I deal with a lot told me, you know, to go ahead and do it without the turbo, run it, get all the kinks worked out, which I'm glad I did because I am still having some issues with. I'm using I forget the brand of the company or the computer, but it's a standalone kit with like a stock computer. And I've got the Holly system sitting at the house, but I'm going to LS Fest here in 2 weeks. So I didn't want to get in the process of doing all that and get stuck. But yeah, man, it's a full build. It put 450 to the wheels, NA. So it's a beast, man. It runs pretty good for what it is. But like I said, it's still slow to me because I'm used to 600. If it's not 800 wheel horsepower, I'm bored with it. But it's, you know, I've had the truck 2 years. I've got a lot of money invested in it. I'm not going to disclose that because the wife will probably be watching this. But I've got a lot of money tied up in it. But it's my passion. It's what I love, and it definitely helps promote the business. I literally can't go anywhere in that truck without being flagged down.
Yes.
And to give you a little funny story on this is pretty funny because a lot of people aren't used to real extreme builds like that. I had to stop by Ace to get some bolts. I pulled in. I pull up in. I'm sitting, you know, it's chopping a little bit. And all of a sudden, I see something in the corner of my eye. I look up, and it's the lady that runs the register. She's poked her head out the window,
Oh, wow,
or out the
yes.
door, and she's looking, and she looks all confused. And I'm like, oh, she's probably mad because it's loud. And I go in there, and I apologize for it being loud. And she's like, oh, no, you're fine. She goes, I thought a helicopter landed in the parking lot. It was the funniest thing. I just thought it was
That
hilarious.
baby sounds good, man.
But yeah, man, it's a cool truck. I definitely got that truck right before the market exploded on them. I honestly feel like I could probably get big money for that truck. I see them online. I've yet to see one.
Yes.
I've seen some in better condition as far as like a little bit nicer, but as far as like custom build and the unique style that I've done, I haven't seen one that even compares to it. But it would take a lot of money for me to get rid of that truck because, like I said, I use it for advertising, marketing for the business, and I just enjoy driving it.
I enjoy it. And
You know, we've all seen Chris's truck is pretty sweet,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's
But you know, you don't have to start there. It's not that or nothing.
right.
And I think if I've learned anything over the years, it's particularly if this is a lifelong joy, just start. Just
Yes.
find a car. It may not be the dream car.
Yeah, and I will say that's not my first build. I've built a lot of cars.
Don't be intimidated that it takes $75,000 to get you into this
Yes.
this hobby. You can work towards that, but there's plenty of opportunities, plenty of model choices that aren't today's popular,
Yeah.
most popular model going across, you know, the auction block that can get you in it and allow you to enter into this and have so much fun. You know, for me, as I told you, I enjoyed dirt bikes, and as I grew up, I really latched on to my desire for muscle cars. At the same time, it was all about dirt bikes, and I scratched up every penny I could, buying one part or another to keep my bike running, or my transportation to get that bike to wherever I was going.
Yeah.
And that's what brought me together with my El Camino was the ability of a muscle car that had that character, but also had the ability uniquely to run dirt bikes and transportation. I was never able at that stage to own an El Camino, but later in life, that was the car that always attracted me the most back from those days. And bought my first one in '94 and enjoyed it and fixed it up and got it looking sweet 2 years after I purchased it. But I had 2 young daughters at the time, and life quickly taught me that a 2-seat El Camino is not the best family mode of transportation known at the time. So, and my wife, love her to death, she never stood it, you know, she never rose a flag, but I realized the time I needed to sell it and sold it. And speed forward 24 years, one day my wife came downstairs and saw me doing the classic thing we do, was watching our shows. And she finally sat down and said, you know what, you just quit watching these car shows and go out and buy your next damn El Camino because you know you want one.
Yes, for the wife. That's what I'm
you
talking
got a
about.
good
You got to
wife.
go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
you got
love
a
her to
good
death, and it wasn't more than a couple months later, and that was in the garage.
Yes.
So,
I love it, man.
That's
Beautiful
probably the
car.
cleanest El Camino that I've
Beautiful
seen.
car.
And like I said, I do this professionally. I see all kinds of cars. That's probably the nice.
Yeah.
Probably the only one that I've seen that's even remotely close was that one we had at Gateway that was 454 with a big blower on
Yeah.
it. Made like 700 horsepower, but it was nowhere near as clean as yours,
Yeah,
paint wise.
thank you.
That's a nice car. That's a
enjoy
nice
it.
El Camino.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got
All
here.
right. I think I'll
Let me tell you what.
yeah. There we go.
Well, you're good. You're
Well, you're sitting on Queen 9, so I'm going to have to take a car.
Yeah, you're going to have to. Bust.
Busted again.
on my hit.
You got to look at your man.
He's got you, Queen 9.
Yeah.
Hit me. I'm a gambling man.
Ooh, bust.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Too bad. You know, it's $42,000.
Yeah, I can take another one. Yeah,
That's two in a row for
it's
Calvin,
two in a
isn't
row
it?
for me, man. I'm good at
Yeah,
this.
man.
I'm
Dylan
good at
won.
this. Dylan
House
wins
wins.
again, man. How long have you had your El Camino?
First one I had for 3 years back in '94, and I've had this current one for 5 years.
Plan to add anything else to the collection?
You know, I would love to have a garage about this size, and I could pretty quickly draw you up a list of the cars that I'd like to own.
Some of them might even be in here.
Yeah, might be. I got one that I was looking at more than twice already here. I'll
I
talk
seen
to
you looking.
But the reality is, I'm enjoying my El Camino as much as I did back in the '90s, as much as I did the day I got this one, and I just plan on sticking with it.
When we talk about the auctions, whether it's Barrett, Meekin, and some of the other guys out there, and you see your car or a car that you have or truck that you have
Yeah.
go across the auction block
Yeah.
and it sells, what are your thoughts?
But you know what? Interesting you asked that because this was after I bought mine.
Yes.
But I got pictures of mine rolling across Meekum in Kissimmee the year before I bought it.
Wow.
Went across the deck. The bids closed out, and it went. It didn't sell on the block, and the car moved to Streetside Classics in Orlando, and that's where I purchased it.
Nice. What are your thoughts? How do you feel when you see
I'm
it?
in this industry, so I have some mixed feelings about it. I see it firsthand. I've got clients that buy cars from the auction. You know, the biggest problem versus what I do with consignment and an auction is with an auction, most of the time, you only get to lay eyes on it for a quick second versus here you can get an inspection, you can put it up on the lift, you can really look at the car. I've got some high-end clients that have a lot of money and have a lot of cars, and they've bought cars from there, and they get them home, and they realize that they're put together cheaply, fast builds, very sloppy, not done right, and they're not happy with the car, and then I end up having to get it and have my mechanic sort them and fix them. And, you know, and another thing, too, is they allow people to drink there. So we actually have a client here that has a lot of money. He gets to drinking a little bit, and he gets to throwing some money around, and he spends a little too much. Funny story. I'm not going to name the person, but when Kevin Hart bought that Corvette for $600,000, one of my clients was the one bidding against him, and he was bidding him up on purpose.
Wow.
Yeah, Kevin Hart was going around the whole time saying, "I'm going to
Is
buy
that
this car.
teal
I'm going to buy
color?
this car." It was, I think, if I remember correctly, it was like a baby blue color.
Okay.
It was like a 50. It was like a 55, 56, 57. I don't
remember
exactly
that car.
what year, but he paid like $600,000 for it.
Beautiful
He heard
car, by the
Kevin-
way.
He heard Kevin going around saying like, "No one's going to buy this car. I'm going to buy it." It was built by a famous Corvette builder. It was like LT4 or LT5 swapped. I mean, beautiful car, but he bid them up. And you get a lot of people that go in there that either don't know what they're doing and have more money than sense, or they've been drinking a little bit. And it does kind of drop prices for this market. Like you said, someone like you, an average Joe, sees a Trans Am went across the auction block at $80,000,
Right.
and they automatically assume their number 3 or number
Yes.
4 daily driver with crappy paint is worth what
Right.
that car that rolled across one owner,
Yes.
all original with like 10,000 miles on it. They automatically assume when they come to me,
Yes.
they're like, "Well, I want $40,000," and I'm like, "Yeah, your
Yes.
car is about a $15,000 car.
Not the same.
Where did you get that? Where'd you come up with that price?" "Well, I seen one roll across me," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that car that rolled across Mecum was
Right.
a special car. It either was a one owner, special
Trailer
documentation.
queen.
Yeah,
Or it had
you know.
4 miles on
There's
it.
a reason why casinos feed you alcohol.
Yeah.
But I will say, with that being said, we do tend to get top dollar for cars here because a lot of times we're dealing with people from other states that are looking at the car, and we offer financing, we offer inspections. So a lot of people, instead of going and buying from someone individual through their garage, where it's more of a pain in the butt to set up, schedule a time and have an inspector come and do all that, you bring it here where we've got all these cars and we're professionals and we're in the business, and I'm very passionate about what I do. And, you know, we have a little saying here, we don't bring anything in here that I wouldn't have in my own garage. So, like I said, you know, versus buying from someone out of their house where they're not probably more than likely not going to put it up on a lift for you and accommodate you for financing. It's, you know, when you do financing on these classic cars, it can be a little, I wouldn't say challenging, but it's difficult. It's not a quick, easy fill out a credit app and it's done. Like I have to do an inspection. An inspector comes and does pictures of the car. They make sure the car is running and driving and all that. And, you know, there's just a little bit more safety when you're buying a car through us. Like I said, the auctions are great and you can get good deals there, but you have to be careful. You have to do your homework. You can't, you know, a lot of guys, they just show up that day, they see the car sitting there and it looks pretty, it looks nice, but then you get it home and it's got, you know, whoever did the wiring didn't do it properly, or you get under the car and you realize that it's all held together with bubble gum and zip ties.
Black
Do
tape.
your research.
Black
Yeah,
tape.
exactly. Like I said,
Black
I'm not trying to crap on.
Oh, no, I know you're not. I know
Barrett
you're
or
not.
anything, but you know, just seeing what I do here, I think what I offer here is a little better than what they do.
Yeah.
It's personal here.
Yeah,
And you should
very
go to
personal.
one, too,
And
because
when you buy a
go,
car
it's a
from
different
me
experience.
and you leave here, I don't like not talk to you anymore. I always tell my customers that you can always reach back out to me, even if it's 2 months, 6 years down the road. You call me if there's an issue. I will do everything I can to point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because like I said, at the end of the day, man, I worked a job that I was miserable, and I now get to do what I love, and so it's a passion. And I try to do the best I can at this job. Like I said, this is just the beginning here at Collectible. This is just the beginning. The end goal would be to eventually have multiple locations and really change the game. I'd really like to be better than what's out there right now.
This type of business is to me a great example of the right way to do it. When I bought my car, you know, it started by looking at I'd done my research way before that, knowing what I wanted the car to have. I knew what to look for in the car. I knew where to look for rust. You see photos on the internet, and you know what? I got to tell you, in my personal experience, there's no photo can live up to eyeballs. And being able to see the car yourself, put your eyes on the car, do an inspection. I spent the better part of 5 hours a day about my car.
Wow.
Being able to put it on a lift, being able to drive it, being able to really shake the car out and spend time searching under the car and really getting to see what it was like underneath told a lot and gave me the confidence that my investment was going to be a good investment.
Yeah, the two things that I look for when I purchase a car is not only do I look for the condition and the overall mechanical part of it, but I also look at the experience that I have when I'm behind the wheel. You can have a vehicle that's had an off-frame restoration rotisserie and look absolutely perfect, but you go to drive it and it just doesn't drive good.
Yep.
I think that's part of the experience when I sell one. Not only do I want it to look good, but I also want it to handle, perform, and drive good. So that's one thing that we look for when we do purchase, because we do purchase some cars here. I try to find good cars when I purchase them, and those are all three things: mechanical, cosmetic, and how it drives. And I think that's what buyers look at. They look at cosmetic, they look how mechanical it is, and then what does it feel like when I drive it? Do I get that feeling when I drive it that makes me excited, makes me want to take it home? That's what I really look for. And that's, at the end of the day, I don't try to do any sales gimmicks. I just try to provide good inventory and provide great service, and that usually does the job for me.
Nice.
I don't have to focus on any kind of crazy sales
Give us a
pitch.
quick hand before we.
Paint can be deceiving.
It can be.
And we do a pretty good job of, checking them out
And
really
I will
well.
say, pretty much every car that comes in here, we have a professional detailer. I'll give Alex a little shout out here. It is, I'm drawing a blank on his company now. I just drew a complete blank.
Gold Shield.
Gold Shield. His name is Gold. The name of the company is Gold Shield. They do high-end wraps, window tint, paint corrections. I would say 90% of the cars that come in here get full paint corrections on them. So they get buffed. They either single stage, 2-stage, or 3-stage. If the paint if it really needs it, usually a lot of your black cars need an extra step. Sometimes we'll wet sand them. But I don't know if we'll do any B-roll shots around the showroom here, but Every cart we have here, that's one thing that I shoot for, is to make the paint look as good as possible. And I'm not trying to hide anything. The car will have good paint, but it just, a lot of people don't understand, like when you wash them, if you don't wash them properly, use a 2-bucket method, or when you're wiping them down, if you're not wiping them down properly, you'll put little micro scratches. You ever looked at a car and you see the little swirls all in it? That's from where just being wiped down incorrectly or not washed properly. So we get a lot of cars that are like that, and by buffing them, I can make them look like glass. I mean, slick, mirror finish. And
Nice.
that's, like I said, not only am I selling a car, but I'm selling my brand, and I want to build that and make it when my car is out in public with the collectible motor car. I want people to go, dang man, collectible motor car, they got some nice cars,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to,
Yeah,
see,
they
I'm
want
gonna
you
have
to come
take
back.
your thing off the back of your car. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't do it like
I learned
that.
early on the advantage.
No, his
of,
car's clean though.
I learned early on the advantage of drying a car with air as opposed to a rag.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I saw a guy do it one time with a leaf blower.
Yeah.
And my wife come out and saw me doing my C7 Corvette with it. She's like, "What are you doing?" She's like making fun. I'm like, "Dude, you're laughing now, but that car, the paint looked amazing on it because I never touched it with a rag."
I blow mine off with a compressor every time I wash it.
Yep.
What we got?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna hold because I've got 21.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you got
not a
21.
bad decision.
That's definitely not.
I'm
and
gonna
you
have to
can
take
go
a hit
hard.
as much as I dislike it.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, guys, this
man.
has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys for
and I
coming.
appreciate you helping us or doing this and inviting us to do it. And I'm happy to be a host. And maybe we can do something like this again more in the future. I really have enjoyed it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Now I know you enjoyed cars, you and I. What would you say to someone who's watching this episode, where to start and what to look for when desiring to own a muscle car or a classic car or a classic truck? It's the variety is.
I would say,
This is your dream, but like your dream car list right here.
yeah, I would say start out with a good car. Don't worry so much about like, what modifications are done to it. I'll try to find a good example, something that's maybe been garage kept, well taken care of. Even if it's like a completely stock car, you can start with a good base. I think you'll have a good experience. You start with a project like he was saying. You start with something that's already LS swapped, and maybe you spend all your money just because it's LS swapped, and then you get it and it's got all kinds of problems, and you got to buy another wire harness and a computer. That can get
I've learned.
it can
my
ruin
lesson
your
on that.
experience, right?
I'd much rather just probably do it myself, unless I know that it was done correctly. I've been doing this long enough now where I've learned over time. Like I said, I eat, sleep, breathe it now. Like I know more than I did a year ago. So to touch base on what Steve is, if you're getting into the game and you're not very mechanical, I would go with something. I would try to save your money and get something with good paint already. Because the turning the wrenches is not the hard part. Like I was saying earlier in this, if you have the right tools, you got YouTube now that pretty much shows you everything.
Yeah.
And if you have the confidence, you can pretty much turn the wrenches. But paint work, that's a whole nother art, man. There's a reason why paint jobs are $20,000.
Yeah.
My brother's a painter, so I've seen firsthand like the amount of work and the craftsmanship that it takes to do that. So my if you're not if you're not a paint guy, a body guy, definitely find a car that it doesn't have to be the lowest mileage car, but find a car that was well taken care of. That someone did take decent care of the paint, because that's just going to save you one step. Because like literally, you can take a car with good paint, lower it, and put some good wheels on it, and you're already like getting attention.
Yes.
And then you can start focusing on maybe doing some motor stuff, some interior stuff. But to get a car just to get it looking good and cool, lower wheels makes that change the look. You can take a Camry, a stock Camry, lower it and put some wheels on it, and you're gonna be like, man, that car looks pretty good,
Now we have to talk about the right wheels too.
Yeah,
Because you can, I've seen so many people put some. I got some new wheels for my car. What are those, 15s, dude? Oh no, man, no, those are not.
Yeah,
the right
and
ones.
that's one thing. When you are new at it, I would definitely say, take your time. You're spending your hard-earned money on these parts. Take a little time to watch
Parts
some
are not
YouTube
cheap.
videos
Parts
and
are
to
not
kind of
cheap.
do your research. Because I've been guilty of it. Buy something real quick, get it, and I'm like, man. And a couple months later, I see something else. I'm like, man, I should have bought that instead. So I'm real big about like I'll spend. You can ask my wife. She hates it. She says I'm always competing with YouTube or you because I'm always researching my next car part or what's the next hot car. But that's how I stay up on the trends here. Is I'm always involved and always invested in like what's going on in the car community
I'm with you.
and staying on top of it.
The other thing I'd say is this is all about your desire. Whatever car you pursue needs to be a car that when you turn that key, starts your adrenaline, starts your enjoyment of it. You're looking forward to driving the car today.
Yep.
And don't worry about what everybody else has or suggests. This should be the car that lights your fire and really excites your memories, and it's the car that you can't wait all week
Yes.
through the tough day in and day out of hard work and what have you. When Saturday finally comes, this is the car you want to get in and turn
Yes.
off all the crazy of the week and be able to enjoy yourself for a couple hours.
Now, I'll add one little thing to that. If you get out of your car and you take 10 steps away and you stop and turn and look at your car and go,
That's it.
dang, that's a sexy car.
That's it.
That's when you know you have the right car.
That's right.
If I don't do that with a car, it's not the car.
Yeah.
One of my tips was start somewhere. If it's, I go and research the car, find out what I want. At the beginning, I didn't worry about price. I just knew, okay, let me start saving somewhere. So what I did, I created a dream car savings chart. And I put my budget that I'm willing to spend for the car at the top. And I did it in tiers.
That's your marketing brain working
Yes.
there. I don't think like that.
And
I
I-
go, what's the next part?
No. So I collaged the car. Big space in the middle. I said, all right, my mind, I want a 70 Chevelle. My budget is $75K, and I'm starting from the bottom. And I just said, all right, in this section, I know I'm gonna need 10 here, 10 here, 10 there, 15 there until I get to that max. So I just started somewhere. It was 10, $5, $6, just whatever, just going towards that pile. And what kept me motivated was watching the auctions.
Yeah.
Going looking for some nice photos, keeping me inspired. Because, you know, when you save and you kind of like,
Yeah, you lose the passion.
it seems so unachievable when you're like, man, I want that, but man. So I watch something to keep me motivated. So I would say start small. Don't jump out the gate unless you have the capital. Just start small, 100 here, 50 here, 10 here, just something working towards that. Then you finally see yourself get in there, and then you'll finally achieve your
And
goal.
there's good classics you can get into and not spend 70 grand. I'll tell you, like the 442s,
Mm-hmm.
they're still pretty cheap. You can get a decent 442. That one's kind of a unique one. But like we just sold a 67
Yeah,
442.
that was a nice car.
It was a pretty nice car. Was well taken care of. It wasn't nothing radical, and I think it sold for like $32,000.
Nice.
So it's a
It's
decent
not bad.
car, not
And
terrible, it's not
financing,
crazy
you-
expensive. Even like some of your like 65, 66 Mustangs, you can get one that's maybe not the nicest one for. You can get a pretty nice one for low 20s. Real nice one, 30s. But
Well, here's the other flip to that too, is like the Cougar. I mean, you know, the Cougar hasn't come up to the Mustang prices,
No.
but you can go get it, which is essentially the same car. And I personally like it because it's a little bit different. You know, there's going to be 14 of those at the car show. The Cougar, not so many.
It's some bad Resto Mar Cougars out there
Yeah.
now. It was one at the.
There was a sweet one about 2 or 3 cars down
man.
from you at Caffeine and Octane
And
last month.
he did some amazing work to it. And I'm
Beautiful
like,
car.
beautiful car.
Yeah, sometimes that car that nobody wants can sometimes be that car everyone wants. You know, when you put your own touch on it. I've seen cars that are oddball cars. We had a Fiero come in recently. Super, you know, a Fiero is not really my thing, but this car was really nice. It was a 2-owner car. He
Nice.
swapped a Buick. Was it a 6-cylinder? It was a
Yeah.
Buick 6-cylinder in it with the supercharger on it that came out of like the Bonneville or something.
Yeah.
And it was actually a pretty sweet car, you know. And he made it his. He was a GM tech, and he did all this and made it his own. And it was a unique, really cool car. So it's, like I said, the Chevelles, all the popular cars goes back to that supply and demand. They're always going to be high, but there's GM made other chassis that are the same as the Chevelle that you can get, like the Olds and the Buicks and stuff like that. You know, like a Buick GS, the same thing, same body style or same frame and everything as the Chevelle. It's
And I
just
kind of always liked making something that I guess my favorite thing, fixing cars up and then, you know, making them awesome, was to get a car that your friends are like, what? Did you really buy that? And then, 3-4 months later, they go, man, I cannot believe that's the same car.
Yes.
yeah. And I know you guys are probably like me. When you started off, you probably modified your daily.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger,
Well,
and
there
I was
was
talking about
only
having a
a
Honda, I didn't have another car.
Yes.
I was modifying my daily. Like that was, so like if it broke, like
I'ma
I was
get
telling
this
you,
speed.
Like I had to bum rides to work when it broke, and I was having to save money and fix it. And, that's the whole part about the car, is it like you don't have to have 2 cars. You can just modify your daily. And going back to like knowing how to modify it and all that, the car community is probably one of the most friendly places that you can go. You can go out to a car show,
Yes.
not know a single
Yes.
person, and leave there making 5 or 6 friends.
Yes.
You know,
Easily.
And then, if you have a question, you can call me. Call me. I mean, yeah, I'm busy a lot of times, but I'd be more than welcome. I've talked to customers before that have called me asking for a part or something.
Yes.
And I don't sell parts here, but I ended up like talking to them about how to fix their issue or something like that. You know, at the end of the day, we love cars, and you know, we're willing to do whatever we can to help a fellow car person out.
That's
It
what I'm
probably
talking
hasn't
about.
changed, but I remember when I was a kid, my first car, I didn't measure money in the same way. I measured money in, that's a carburetor. Or we could go do this weekend, but that's going to cost me an exhaust system. So
Yep.
everything was monetary based for me on the cost of parts for keeping up my bike or my car at the time. I suppose in some ways that still exists today.
Yeah, it do. Steven, hit me.
All right.
Bus.
Lost this one.
Lost the streak.
Great
won.
show today. Chris, congratulations on this win this time. Thank you guys for coming out.
Hey, thanks
Appreciate
for
it so
having us,
much,
man.
guys.
It's been a blast.
Thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like this video, thumbs up, subscribe. Till next time.